Hello and welcome. It's Wednesday, the 7th of May. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Exactly 3 weeks after the Sewol-ho ferry sinking, and the number of missing remains at over 30 people. The United Nations Human Rights Council has given North Korea more than 250 recommendations on how to improve the rights conditions within the country. Plus, the OECD revises up its 2014 growth outlook for South Korea to 4%, saying the global economic recovery should help boost the nation's exports. Our top story this morning: exactly 3 weeks have passed since the Sewol-ho ferry capsized off the southwestern coast of Korea. Days have turned into weeks, but the number of people still missing stands at 34. 268 are confirmed dead. For the latest on the recovery operations and the ongoing investigations, we're going to connect to our Kwon Soa at the news center. Soa, fill us in.
Mark, recovery operations are expected to continue in full swing on this Wednesday, as from today, tidal currents are going to be at their calmest for 4 days. The first search phase was completed as of Tuesday, as all 64 cabinets out of the total 111 that were thought to have passengers in were opened and searched through at least once. And now the cabins will be explored in detail, including bathrooms, storage rooms, and snack bars. Now, out of concern for the rescue divers' health, more medical staff has been deployed at the accident site. This comes as a civilian diver died while searching the sunken vessel for victims on Tuesday. Just before dawn, the diver, surnamed E, went into the rough water to install new guideline ropes to the 5th floor of the ship to help in the search for the dozens of bodies that remain unaccounted for. After about 5 minutes at a depth of about 25 meters, the 53-year-old lost communication with his fellow divers on the surface of the water, prompting his colleagues to go and rescue him. The veteran diver was found unconscious and was transported by helicopter to the nearest hospital in Mokpo, but died soon after arriving. Now, this is the first fatality among divers in the nearly 3 weeks of search and rescue operations. Officials are still trying to determine his exact cause of death.
An X-ray of his chest showed no irregularities, but a scan to the head showed a buildup of air inside his skull.
Well, so it's certainly a very sad twist to this already awful disaster, and let's hope the remaining search operations are completed as safely as possible. Now, while the search for the missing continues, the investigations now are proceeding at an extremely fast pace.
That's right, Mark, but some are making the process slow, as the family members of the Sewol-ho ferry's de facto operator Yu Byung-on are not appearing in front of prosecutors, which includes the second son of Yu, who is abroad. They may be forced into the country with the help of the FBI. Meanwhile, throughout the night, the special investigation team progressed with their investigations. Byun Gi-chun, the president of one of the subsidiaries of Yu, who is suspected of irregularities, as well as Hemu Group President Ko Chang-hwan, have been questioned thoroughly.
Yes, lots of questioning to do there. And so people in Korea have just wrapped up a very long holiday weekend that included festive occasions like Children's Day and Buddha's birthday. But instead of recharging at home or celebrating the holidays, many people chose to pay their respects to the victims of this ferry disaster.
Exactly. At a group memorial altar set up in the city of Ansan, where most of the victims were from, visitors from all around the country came with friends or family. Since it opened a week ago, the Ansan Memorial Hall has received about 1.3 million visitors. Outside the mass memorial hall, about 10 parents of some of the youngest ferry passengers continued their silent protest for a 4th day on Tuesday. They held up signs expressing their discontent with the government over its handling of the tragedy. Many of the victims' families blamed the government for the slow rescue process. Now, that's all I have for now, but I'll be back with more updates in our later newscast.
Well, thank you very much, Soa, for that report there. And the nation's Buddhist temples chose not to celebrate Buddha's birthday on Tuesday, instead opting to spend the day grieving and reflecting over the ferry tragedy. Connie Kim reports.
The colorful lanterns adorning Jogesa Temple welcomed thousands of people, including lawmakers, celebrities, and Buddhist leaders Tuesday who came to celebrate Buddha's 2,558th birthday. But the mood was subdued as the hour-long ceremony was dedicated to the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy. The Most Venerable Chaseng's message this year focused on condoling those affected by the sunken Sewol-ho ferry and urging people to cooperate and act with wisdom to create a safer society. Venerable Chaseng, the head of the Choge Order of Korean Buddhism, the largest Buddhist sect in the nation, called on everyone in attendance to spur change.
Korea is in deep grief. The tragic accident of the Sewol-ho ferry was caused by a lack of responsibility among adults and an absence of common sense. I urge all leaders to serve and fully commit to serving society, and I myself will also join in.
President Park Geun-hye gave a speech at the temple Tuesday, the first sitting president to ever do so. She expressed regret over the ferry tragedy and pledged to institute changes in society.
물욕에 눈이 어두워 마땅히 지켜야 할 안전 규정을 지키지 않았고 그런 불의를 묵인해준 무책임한 행동들이 결국은 살생의 업으로 돌아왔습니다. 부처님 말씀처럼 우리 사회 곳곳에 깊이 뿌리 박혀 있는 부조리와 적폐를 바로잡고 올바른 정의를 세워 나갈 수 있도록 국민 여러분께서 힘을 모아 주시기를 바랍니다.
The people who came out to the Buddhist temple for the ceremony also had the tragic Sewol ferry disaster on their minds.
As a mother of two children, one in elementary and the other in middle school, I came to pray that such a devastating accident never happens again to such young souls.
The 20,000 Buddhist temples throughout South Korea conveyed similar messages on Buddha's birthday, expressing condolences for those that lost their lives in the ferry sinking and reflecting on how to prevent another tragedy from occurring. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
That a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. The United Nations Human Rights Council has given 268 recommendations to North Korea for its various human rights violations. The recommendations come from the UN Human Rights Council headquarters in Geneva, and they came on Tuesday after a review of North Korea's human rights violations. With its prison camps and public executions, North Korea will now have to state which recommendations it will accept. The UN is urging Pyongyang to close its prison camps and to seriously address the issues of prisoners of war and separated families. This report will be made public at the next Human Rights Council meeting in September. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has again reiterated his wish to have more freedom to exercise the right to defend an ally under armed attack. Addressing NATO leaders in Brussels on Tuesday, Abe said he wants to remove the country's self-imposed ban on collective self-defense. Under the current interpretation of the Constitution imposed after the Second World War, Japan cannot settle international disputes with the use of force, even if it's attacked. Abe said a panel of security experts is currently looking into changing this, with the government expected to come up with a policy on global peacekeeping operations. The Prime Minister also expressed concern over China's latest military actions and its heavy defense spending. Back here in South Korea, and after the botched government response to the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, a great deal of criticism, has been levelled at the harmful actions or inaction of former government officials heading public organisations here in the country. Among 38 heads of public organisations under government monitoring for reckless management, almost half were so-called parachute appointments. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
Light has been shed on a series of parachute appointment cases at public institutions. Data has shown that almost half of former government officials that held the top positions of public institutions got their jobs from cronyism and not really based on their qualifications. Among the 38 heads of public organizations under the priority control of the government for reckless management, 18 were former government officials. Former officials of the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy now head public organizations such as the Korea Trade Insurance Corporation and the Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power. The heads of other public institutions, including the Korea Exchange and the Korea Deposit Insurance Corporation, were from the Ministry of Strategy and Finance. A list of officials from other ministries, the Maritime, Culture, Transportation, Agriculture and Fisheries, also held top rankings of public organizations. In some cases, there were former government officials that were not even related to the job, while at others, former politicians held top-ranking positions. More than half of the standing auditors at these so-called reckless management public institutions were former government officials, while 31% of them were non-executive directors and 18% executive directors. The Korea Deposit Insurance Corporation had the highest ratio of such officials, followed by the Korea Gas Technology Corporation and Gangwon Land Corporation. Experts say the normalization of public institutions should begin with the rooting out of these parachute appointments. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Now, in some good economic news, the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, has raised this year's growth projection for the Korean economy to 4%. That's up 0.2 percentage points from a forecast it made back in November. The organisation says it expects Korea to post steady growth, with exports picking up, thanks to free trade pacts with major economies like the US and the European Union. For 2015, the OECD projects the Korean economy to grow by 4.2%. This year's outlook for the global economy went in the other direction, however, down 0.2 percentage points to 3.4%. Time now for a look through the international headlines. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice. Now, more girls have been abducted in Nigeria.
Hello, Mark. That's right. As the Nigerian government says it still has no idea where the more than 200 missing schoolgirls are, 8 more girls have been kidnapped by suspected Boko Haram militants in the same state. The latest raid took place in the northeastern village of Warabi, where gunmen also took animals and food. On Monday local time, a video featuring a self-proclaimed leader of Boko Haram surfaced, saying the group, in accordance with directions from Allah, will continue to kidnap the daughters of Christians, force them to convert to Islam, and sell them into slavery. Meanwhile, Nigeria's President Goodluck Jonathan has welcomed the U.S. help to assist the government to locate the more than 200 schoolgirls still missing. At a meeting of the Council of Europe in Vienna, Austria, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov ruled out new talks to diffuse rising tensions in Ukraine, reasoning that an earlier accord reached amongst Russia, Ukraine, the EU, and the U.S. has yet to be implemented by pro-Russian groups on the ground. This as German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier says Ukraine is, quote, just a few steps away from a military confrontation. The weekend saw the country's worst day of violence since the unseating of Ukraine's pro-Russian president in the mostly peaceful port city of Odessa, where more than 40 were killed. Kiev's Interior Ministry also says 30 pro-Russian insurgents died Monday, local time, as Kiev tried to retake the city of Sloviansk. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says South Sudan's rebel chief has agreed to the idea of peace talks to end the months-long conflict that has killed thousands and displaced more than 1 million people. The UN leader arrived in South Sudan Tuesday to call on the feuding leaders to find a political solution. His visit following U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry's last week, during which he warned of consequences if rebels and the Salva Kiir government do not commit to peace talks. The two sides have continued to battle despite a ceasefire agreement signed in January. And a new study has found that parts of East Antarctica, once considered more stable than the West Antarctic ice sheet, could begin an irreversible melting trend and raise the world's sea levels to dangerous levels within this century. The finding comes from scientists at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Research in Germany, who said that the vast ice sheets hold enough water to raise sea levels by 53 meters. The study has been published in the journal Nature Climate Change.
Thank you to Eunice there for the international headlines. Now, as we mentioned at the top of the newscast, the extended holiday weekend here in Korea included a day dedicated to commemorating the birth of Buddha. Numerous events took place across the nation, including the annual Lotus Lantern Festival. Im Hyun-hee has this report.
Strung through the air, creating a colorful sky, these lanterns represent a century-old tradition in Korean history. Hundreds of years ago, Buddhism was prominent throughout Korea. In fact, it was once considered the most dominant religious and cultural influence in the country. Time has passed, but the impact of Buddhism can still be found around the country, and every year to celebrate the birth of Buddha, events are held. And the biggest can be found right under this colorful lantern ceiling.
Lotus Lantern Festival originated in Silla era more than 1300 years ago. And the purpose of the Lotus Lantern Festival is to brighten our mind and as well as the world.
Called Yeondeung-hae in Korean, the annual Lotus Lantern Festival has come to become a symbolic cultural event for the people not only in Korea, but also from around the world. Although its roots are in Buddhism, the Lotus Lantern Festival attracts a wide range of guests.
Mine will represent my family and that they're safe, and it's just learning a new culture here in Korea and learning something new.
Since the Goryeo Dynasty, the annual Lotus Lantern Festival has been an opportunity for the community to gather as friends and family. But this year the emotions were strong as the community drew together in remembrance of the victims of the Sewol-ho ferry accident. People offered their prayers and took time to reflect upon the lives lost, as white lanterns marked the areas dedicated to those who fell to the tragic accident. And as the sun sets, one of the most popular parts of the festival begins. A troop of Buddhist monks lead the way, with their lanterns lighting the path for the rest of the parade. Then large exotic floats are next in line, attracting crowds of people to the mesmerizing sights. Thousands of people have gathered here today to mark the very special occasion of Buddha's birth, a man who lit the way for many. Im Hyun-hee, ARIRANG News.
And good morning to you all. Now, over the long holiday weekend, many Koreans also took time to thank a living legend. Now, they packed an ice rink to bid farewell to Kim Yeon-ha, the figure skating sensation that left a lasting mark in the history books and a lasting impression in the minds of sports fans. Our Song Ji-sun brings us the scene of Queen Yeon-ha's last official performance on ice.
17 years of competition on ice. Olympic and world champion Kim Yeon-ha has been waiting for this moment for a very, very long time to close her chapter as a competitive skater. And for her last gala, she transformed into a princess who can't sleep, taking the ice with the opera Turandot, one that she always wanted to skate to. From her signature Yeon-ha camel spin to triple jumps, her skating is flawless like it always has been. Even though she steps down from the competitive spotlight, skaters believe unanimously that there has not been, and may never be, another perfect skater like Kim.
I have such respect for you and all that you've done, and to come back and skate the way you skated, it was even better, and you were, to me, the best. You've just changed the sport, so thank you for what you've given to the sport. And
is time to say goodbye, but it's hard for the fans to see the queen leave the ice, as she has been a mainstay of hope and inspiration to her audiences. Kim, who already donated to UNICEF for the Sewol-ho ferry victims, spared a minute of silence before the start of the show.
Her performance is a great consolation to the nation, especially at a time when it's in sorrow and like now. I wish her all the best for her future.
The figure skater who always stood on the podium in every competition she entered in now has a future entirely open to herself, in which she said figure skating will always be some part of.
Even after the Olympics, I trained as usual to give the best in this ice show for my fans. As for the future, I will take things slow, take some rest, as it's really over now.
Kim let go her status as national skater as of Tuesday, marked the beginning of a new life away from competitive skating. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스.
And now moving over to the upcoming Incheon Asian Games, where after just 3 years, the constructions for the main stadium have been complete. With many considering it the new landmark of Incheon, the main Incheon Games Stadium will be revealed for the first time in a ceremony today to mark the completion of the construction. And the huge stadium is over 110,000 square meters with 5 floors and will seat 62,818 spectators. With the Incheon Asian Games coming up in September, organizers believe it will be a grand event, with the opening and closing ceremony set to take place in the venue as well. And now shifting over to golf, where despite not being able to win a single LPGA title this season, Park In-bi was still able to hold on to her #1 ranking for the 56th straight week. While Stacey Lewis is right behind her in the latest ranking at #2 with her recent victory at the North Texas LPGA Shootout, Park still has some breathing room in the latest ranking points. But it seems like there's a flaw in her putting that her fiancé/coach noticed during the past few weeks, as he stated that her head-toe moves while she's putting. While she's been known for her putting skills, she has been struggling as of late, and she plans to work on her putting in hopes to win her first LPGA title this season. And now over to some Tuesday's KBO action. The Lotte Giants were able to beat the Doosan Bears in a slugfest 19-10, with the NC Dinos beating the Nexen Heroes 6-3, and the Samsung Lions beat the SK Wyverns 8-4. You want to take a look at the two struggling teams square off as the LG Twins took on the Hanwha Eagles. Of course, going into the game here, we go over to the first inning of the game. Kim Tae-gyun singles to left center, but an error by the left fielder here scores Chung Gun-woo, and the Hanwha Eagles take an early 1-0 lead. Second inning, Lee Byung-gyu with an infield single here, but a costly error here as the E6 scores the other Lee Byung-gyu, and it's 1-1. Bottom of the 8th inning, Hanwha up 4-1. Lee Byung-gyu singles to center field. That's his 2000th career base hit, and the quickest to 2,000 in the KBO. But now the next batter here, Lee Jin-young, he's got a single to right field. That's an RBI single, and it's 4-2. Next play, Park Yong-taek at bat. He's got a single to center field. Two-man scores, and we're tied 4-4. Let's shift over to the bottom of the 9th inning. Bases loaded, and it's the other Lee Byung-gyu, #7, singles to right. That's the game winner. The LG Twins win it 5-4. And now finishing things off with some AFC Champions League round of 16 match, as the Pohang Steelers and the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors squared off on Tuesday. And the Pohang Steelers continue their dominance over the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors, taking the first leg at away 2-1 as they get closer to advancing to the round of 8. And with that said, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Temperatures will continue to hover above 20 degrees Celsius across the region today, but lots of morning sun will give way to clouds as the day goes on and drop sporadic showers later in the evening to the Seoul metro area. And over in Jindo, winds and waves will get tougher in the afternoon, but the speed of tidal currents should go down to their slowest since neap tide starts from today. And as for the weather outlook here in the capital, temperatures should remain within the seasonal average range, but nationwide showers on Sunday will drag down the temperatures a few notches. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The high in Seoul will rise to 21, while Gwangju and Busan climb to 25 and 21 respectively. While for other regions, it looks like down on Jeju will reach 23, Daejeon peaks at 25, while Mount Kumgang tops out at 15. Well, that's all for now, but I'll be back with more updates after noon.
Thank you very much, Jian, and that's all for now. We'll be back at noon Korea time. Until then, goodbye.